Dawn slipped over the little port of Kalatiri, the way honey slides off a spoon, slow, viscous, gilding everything it touched. From the front balcony of Aquanico Dive Center, Nicoleta Andros watched the light travel across the masts bobbing in the harbour and down onto the flat indigo sheet of the Aegean. She inhaled the citrusy smell of blooming bitter orange and the yeasty aroma rising from her Yaya's bakery next door. Another good day for diving, she decided, though lately even the most perfect morning carried an undercurrent of unease. The bell above the shop door jingled. "Kalimera, Nikki," called Yanis, owner of the Poseidon Taverna, and by self-appointment, Kalatiri's biggest gossip conduit. He was wearing a faded soccer jersey and clutching 2 paper cups of coffee. Nikki took hers gratefully. "Thanks, you're up early." "Never went to bed." Yanis gave her a toothacheingly sweet grin. "My cousin's wedding ran late, and if you think I'm missing the fisherman bringing in the first red mullet of the season, you don't know me at all." He lowered his voice. "Heard anything more about those coins?" Nikki stiffened. 5 days ago, on a routine checkout dive at the wreck of the SS Philima, an early 20th century cargo steamer lying in 30 meters of water, one of her students had found a bronze drachma from the classical period. There was no earthly way such a coin belonged on that wreck. The find set her nerves jangling, though she'd done her best to hush it up. Who had planted it, and why? "Rumors only create trouble," she said. "Let it die." Yanis's eyes twinkled. "Trouble keeps an island lively, Kukla. So do scandals, and tourists are already whispering." Exactly the problem, Nikki thought. Whispering could become shouting, and shouting could bring the wrong sort of divers, ones who didn't care about conservation permits or cursed amphorae. An hour later, the dive boat Zephyr nosed out of the harbour, its wooden hull slicing through a sea-oily calm, taking Nikki and 6 clients toward the Philima. Standing at the bow, she tried to savour the view. Lavender slopes of time, whitewashed houses clustered like sugar cubes along the quay, distant goats clambering over terraces older than recorded history. But her mind kept snagging on the coin nestling in her office safe, and on the unnerving certainty that someone had put it there as bait. She guided the group down the anchor line into cool, shimmering blue. Sunlight struck the wreck in dappled bars. Barnacle-crusted portholes stared back like blind eyes. Nikki signalled for her divers to spread out and observe the artifacts she'd flagged with orange clips. An old brass telegraph, cracked porcelain plates, a broken navigation lantern. Halfway through the tour, her lead client, a jovial Dane, tapped her tank and pointed to the silted seabed. Something gleamed. Nikki hovered closer, heart hammering. Another coin. The diver reached for it, but she intercepted him, shaking her head. She slipped the disc into her BC pocket for safekeeping, then finished the dive while her brain churned over time. Back at the shop, she rinsed gear mechanically, waiting until the last client left before examining the find beneath the magnifying lamp. Same telltale green patina, same stamped owl of ancient Athens. Someone had planted a second coin in precisely the place treasure hunters would look. She phoned Sergeant Petros Iliadis at the Kalatiri police post. "Planting artifacts on a protected wreck," he repeated. "That's a felony under antiquities law, but murder." "I didn't say murder." "You're about to," he replied dryly. Nikki closed her eyes. "I'm about to say this feels like a fuse smouldering awfully close to dynamite." Petros promised to alert the Ephorate of underwater antiquities in Athens, though he warned bureaucracy moved slower than tectonic plates. That left Nikki with nothing but her jitters, until that night, when speedboat engines shattered the quiet of the cove. From her balcony she watched a sleek Oribi slip in without lights, tie up at the abandoned cannery jetty, and unload 3 figures dressed in black wetsuits. They disappeared up the beach path toward town. Nicky swallowed a curse. Illegal treasure hunters already. Next morning brought worse news. A body found floating beyond the breakwater, still in half-unzipped scuba gear. The drowned man was Russian, his passport identified as Dmitry Kovalchuk. No one in Kalatiri recognized him, though a neighbor swore she saw him drinking at the harbor bar after midnight with a burly Greek whose features she could not recall. Nicky's blood chilled. Coin-lured hunters had arrived, and one was already dead. The official cause, announced after cursory examination, was diving accident, possible oxygen toxicity. Petros looked unconvinced. Nicky felt outright uneasy. She spent the afternoon at her grandmother's bakery, kneading kuluri dough with a vengeance. "You're twisting that poor ring like it insulted your mother," Yaya observed. "Someone's staging a wreck," Nicky muttered. "Luring poachers, then. What, letting them drown? Is it more dangerous than the summer tourists who rent motorbikes after 3 ouzos?" Yaya sprinkled sesame seeds with enviable calm. "Find who is angry enough to bait such a hook, and you'll have your answer." Angry enough. That night, Nicky sat on the quay steps with a notebook, listing anyone on Kalatiri who had a reason to despise treasure hunters. At the top, Captain Vasilis Karamanos, owner of the salvage trawler Heraklion. His son, Petros Jr., had been crushed 10 years earlier when a cave ceiling collapsed during an illicit sponge diving expedition run by smugglers. Vasilis never forgave the poachers who'd fled, leaving his boy to drown. Second, Dr. Eleni Markou, marine archaeologist overseeing a long-term survey near neighbouring Thalassa Islet. She battled looters relentlessly, but Eleni was in Athens this month lecturing. Third, Eleni Papadakis, reclusive marine biologist. Rumour claimed he'd exposed an international smuggling ring only to watch the ringleaders walk free on technicalities. Since then, he'd rarely spoken above a growl. These, Nicky decided, were people worth visiting. She found Captain Vasilis before dawn, repairing nets aboard the Heraklion. He was raw-boned, storm-weathered, his grey beard braided in a single plait. "You think I'd salt a wreck with antique coins, girl?" he scoffed, though his eyes betrayed something darker. "That's like shouting fire in a cinema crowded with pyromaniacs." "Exactly," Nicky said. "And treasure hunters burn down more than theatres. They destroy history." Vasilis's hand tightened on the net needle. "History won't bring back my son. That Russian diver won't see another sunrise, either." He flinched. In the trembling half-light, regret and rage warred across his face. But when Nicky pressed, he turned away, muttering, "Talk to the biologist. He studies predators." So she hiked to the far side of the island, where Eleni Papadakis ran his sea turtle rescue station in a converted olive press. He greeted her with wary courtesy, pushing wire-rimmed glasses up a sunburned nose. "Coins, yes, I heard," he said. "Idiocy. The wreck is overdived already. Someone wants looters dead." Eleni considered. "Easiest way. Disable a regulator underwater. No marks topside. But I imagine you know that." Nicky did, and the possibility made her stomach churn. Any idea who might do such a thing? How many islanders lost artifacts to smugglers? His voice grew distant. "More than you have, Fingers." Then he added almost gently, "Be careful, Instructor Andros. Sharks come in many shapes." 2 nights later, another speedboat arrived. Nikki, hiding behind stacked lobster pots, watched 3 people clamber out. One she recognized, Charlotte Dufresne, a glamorously disreputable French treasure diver, rumoured to finance her Mediterranean jaunts by black market antiquities sales. The other 2 men were strangers. They headed toward the Philema's mooring field. Nikki hesitated only a second before slipping into her own wetsuit and grabbing a spare tank. A foolish, dangerous decision, she knew, but waiting for dawn filled her with dread. The sea was velvet black under a new moon. Nikki followed their glowing chemlights descending through the gloom. She kept her distance, switching off her torch, finning as silently as she could. At 28 meters, she saw them fan out across the wreck. One pried at the hull plating with a crowbar, another used a metal detector that beeped faintly through water. Charlotte swam aft. Nikki shadowed her. The Frenchwoman's light flicked across the seabed, and there, glimmering like tiny suns, lay 6 more bronze coins artfully scattered among the sediment. Charlotte's exultant bubbles rose in a rush. Then something blurred past Nikki's peripheral vision. A line, a tentacle. She jerked her head. A shadow moved behind Charlotte, swift as a barracuda. There was a click, metal against metal, and Charlotte's regulator tore loose. The woman convulsed, clawing at empty water. Nikki surged forward, thrusting her own octopus mouthpiece toward Charlotte's lips. A second shadow struck from the side, slamming Nikki against the hull. Her mask cracked, blood filled the left lens. Instinct kicked in. She grabbed Charlotte, dumped the woman's weights, and rocketed upward to the safety stop. They breached coughing and gasping. On the surface, the attackers were gone. Nikki hauled Charlotte onto the Zephyr's inflatable tender, administered oxygen, and signaled distress with her dive torch. The Coast Guard arrived 20 minutes later, but by then one of Charlotte's companions was missing, his empty BCD bobbing like a black jellyfish. Another death. The survivors gave mismatched statements. Charlotte insisted equipment failure caused her near drowning. Nikki told Sergeant Petros about the shadow sabotaging regulators. Charlotte denied it. "We came for photos," she claimed. "Research." Petros rolled skeptical eyes but lacked evidence to detain her. Back in Aquanico's storeroom, Nikki patched her own split mask, hands trembling. Someone down there had tried to kill her. Why escalate? Why now? She sought refuge the next afternoon at Poseidon Taverna. Yanis polished glasses, while Greek blues wailed softly from the radio. "You look like you dived through a blender," he said. "Someone used the Philema as one," Nikki replied. She recounted the attack. Yanis listened, face steadily whitening. "I need to know who delivers supplies to the Heraklion," she asked, "and who fuels Captain Vasilis's skiff after dark." Yanis hesitated, then motioned her to a corner table. "Vasilis fuels once a week, before dawn, buys diesel from my cousin who runs the fuel dock. Nothing odd. But the night the Russian drowned, Vasilis's skiff never left her mooring. The one charter that did. The tourist catamaran Blue Odyssey. That party boat? They anchor near the Chapel Island, miles away. Unless it isn't a party boat at midnight," Yanis said softly. "I've seen them load big crates labelled audio equipment. No music ever plays." Smuggling cover. Nikki felt a mental tumbler's click. Who owns the Blue Odyssey? "Mayor Spirakis' brother, Stavros," Yanis said, "but you didn't hear it from me." Stavros Spirakis, local entrepreneur and legendary charmer, with fingers in every slice of Kalitsunia on Kalatiri. He'd once served a suspended sentence for misfiled export papers involving Cycladic figurines. Treasure hunters attracted by fake coins would be ideal scapegoats for moving genuine loot if they died before talking. That night, Nikki followed the Blue Odyssey using Zephyr's silent electric trolling motor. A sliver of moon cast just enough light to track the catamaran heading straight for the dive site instead of the Chapel Island. She anchored at a respectful distance and slipped into the water, armed with a small dive light and a waterproof camera. Below, the catamaran's hull lights illuminated a hive of activity. 2 divers shuttled crates from an unmapped fissure on the seabed into a cargo net hoisted by electric winch. Amphorae, marble relief fragments, real treasures, not bronze decoys. Nikki's pulse jack-hammered. Stavros had located a previously undiscovered ancient wreck or coastal settlement and was systematically looting it, staging the philema with cheap coins to lure other poachers, and then eliminating them to keep authorities focused on decoy crimes. Elegant in its wickedness. But Stavros wasn't the only player. Someone had physically attacked Charlotte and her partner. Could Stavros do that while supervising topside hoisting? Or did he rely on muscle? Sudden beam of light speared her. A diver lunged. Nikki backed, finning, snapping photos wildly. The attacker grabbed, they wrestled. She recognized through the mask the craggy face of Captain Vasilis. Shock nearly cost her the regulator. Vasilis working for Stavros? No. Vasilis despised treasure hunters. Yet here he was, guarding smugglers' harvest. Nikki's chest squeezed. What if grief and debt had driven him into Stavros's pocket? Or what if he played a deeper game, helping long enough to sabotage? The mystery snapped into focus. Vasilis had planted the coins hoping to draw illegal divers and, in the ensuing chaos, expose Stavros. But when hunters appeared, Vasilis couldn't risk them finding the real site before authorities did. Desperate, he sabotaged their gear, causing deaths he hadn't truly intended. Or so Nikki prayed. Vasilis's eyes in the mask looked anguished before he shoved her toward the surface. She inflated her BCD, broke into starlight, and heard engines roar. The catamaran was escaping. She clambered aboard the Zephyr, breath ragged, and hit the throttle. The chase was short. Zephyr was built for speed. Nikki paralleled the catamaran, shining her spotlight, shouting, "Stop! I have evidence!" She saw Stavros glare from the helm, saw Vasilis on deck wrestling the winch lever. The old captain yanked something, and a crate toppled overboard. Amphorae splashed into the black drink. Stavros cursed, elbowed Vasilis aside, and swung a wrench. A flash, a thud. Vasilis crumpled. Fury propelled Nikki. She rammed the catamaran's stern, leapt aboard with a line, and tackled Stavros. They grappled across the deck until Sergeant Petros's patrol boat surged up, sirens slicing the night. Officers swarmed. Within minutes, cuffs clicked around Stavros's wrists. Petros knelt beside Vasilis. The old man groaned, half-conscious. "He saved the cargo manifest," Nikki said, pointing to water-stained papers clutched in Vasilis's fist. "And he nearly lost his life doing it." In the interrogation room later, the story spilled out. Vasilis had discovered Stavros's looting operation months ago, when he took a freelance job towing research gear for the Blue Odyssey and saw the stolen artifacts. He pretended to join, hoping to gather proof. Planting coins on the philema was his gambit to attract rival poachers, whose clashes would draw official attention. He never meant fatal harm, only to scare them, but twice the sabotage went too far. When the Russians' regulator failed, Vasilis panicked yet continued, convinced any exposure of Stavros justified desperate measures. By the time Charlotte arrived, Vasilis saw Nikki tailing them and realized innocent lives were at stake. That's why he'd tried to ward her off and save Charlotte simultaneously. In my head, he whispered from the hospital bed, I was avenging my son and protecting the island. In truth, I became what I hated. Petros arrested him for reckless endangerment, though the prosecutor later reduced charges, acknowledging his cooperation in dismantling Stavros's smuggling ring. The courts would decide, but Kalatiri already debated the morality around bakery tables and taverna stools, perfect fodder for an island winter. A week later, morning sunlight once again painted the harbour gold. Nikki sat at the quay with a mug of Yaya's strong coffee. Poseidon the cat curled on her lap. Yanis joined her, waving a newspaper. Headline, Smuggling ring nets rare artifacts, local heroes praised. You and Petros are famous. Petros, maybe? Nikki scratched the cat's ears. I'm just glad no one else died. Yanis sighed theatrically. Tragedy resolved, coins recovered, villains arrested. What will we gossip about now? Nikki smiled at the sea. Tourist season starts next month. I'm sure something will wash ashore. He nudged her shoulder. By the way, the Ephorate granted you provisional stewardship of the Philema wreck until they assign an archaeologist. Me? Why? Because you're stubborn, meticulous, and you nearly got yourself drowned protecting it. Yanis's grin softened. Seems you're Kalatiri's new guardian of old ghosts. Nikki looked at the glittering water, remembering bronze coins, darker currents, and the fragile silence of sunken worlds. Guardianship felt heavy, but also right. She lifted her coffee in salute to wrecks and secrets, to the boy Vasilis lost, and to the history still sleeping beneath cerulean waves. Then she rose, readying for the day's dive, and for whatever mysteries the Aegean might cast upon Kalatiri's bright shores.